So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, villains, and welcome to Love the Farmer podcast. And it's a small bit subdued after the result that we had at the weekend. One that I don't think either myself or Paddy or probably anybody that's listening really and truly saw coming, a 3-2 loss at Watford. But we're here hopefully to break it down and to show you guys essentially why we lost this game at the weekend, and also to have a little chat about one or two other little things that have been going on in and around Villa Park over the last few days. Paddy, how's tricks with you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just made my way back up north gingerly after the weekend and the bad result. And it's my 4.5 hour drive gave me a lot to think about with Villa wise. So can't say I'm any more calm than I was on Saturday, but I'll be a little bit more measured in how I respond anyway.
No Villa fan should have been allowed on their own for 4.5 hours and over the weekend after that result, because if they were, they should have taken your belt and your shoelaces because I shouldn't make jokes about that, but it's it wasn't exactly something that we saw coming, and I think it was more so the flatness of the performance, really, Paddy, that really kind of killed it for me. I think the performance was flat. It was flat in the first half. In the second half, I thought it was really good, and we're going to take a look at a couple of examples, I think, why we got overrun, and we'll discuss really the game. But I suppose just an overall high level summary of it, Paddy. We came out of the blocks not really fully confident or sure what we were doing. Watford had one game plan and one game plan only. They executed it to a T, and we found ourselves 2 goals down before halftime. And from there on, we were going to find it difficult to come back against the team that were newly promoted with a full stadium, and were able to pretty much put 6 people on the edge of their area.
Well, that just about sums it up. I don't buy into the fact that they were playing at home, because I thought they were very subdued. Both sets of fans I thought were very quiet. Maybe Watford were absolutely shocked that they were 3-0 up. I don't know. But I thought their fans were very quiet. So I don't think that was a mitigating factor. We just weren't up to it early on, and the goal just before halftime killed us effectively. I know the third one obviously ultimately undone us. But I think to go in at halftime 1-0 down, you have some chance of resurrecting things. But it just felt like the game was over at halftime.
Yeah, and for me, I suppose one thing I want to say here, that there's been a lot of hyperbole, there's been a lot of spitting feathers, and that's absolutely okay. I think the day after the game and maybe directly after the game is probably the time to do that. But when you sit down the cold light of day and you look at it, I think all the problems we saw on Saturday are ultimately fixable. I think they're fixable with 48 hours training, tactics board material, looking back in the game. I think it's very, very easily fixable, and I think it all stems down and it boils down to 2 players, and neither of them are the fullbacks. I think the fullbacks didn't play well, and that's absolutely fine, and we're going to take a look at something here as to the reason why they didn't play well, and that really did stem from midfield. So Paddy, would you want to start? Will we start with that first, or do you want to go into your do you want to talk about the loanees first? Or
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Cool.
Get the bad news out of the way anyway.
Get the bad news out of the way first, yeah. So let me just bring up one or two little pieces here. I've been busy trying to pull out my if only we could play video, as what I've always said on this podcast. If only we could play video here and didn't get struck down by copyright laws, I think I'd have a lot more fun on the podcast, because I love looking at video. I love looking at tape to see what went wrong and what went right and what didn't go at all for within the games or within the different lines that we have. So let me just share a little something that I put together. I put together some still images to try. I hope we'll try and illustrate what happened at Aston Villa. So first of all, let's take a look at the game stats from the weekend. Realistically, everything bar shots and actually working the goalkeeper, which, yes, I know ultimately wins games. We were by far the more dominant team. We dominated the ball, we dominated possession, we had the better chances to score goals. We way more passes. Our pass success rate was really good. Everything from a statistical point of view, bar the actual scoreline, was something I think that Dean Smith can look at and can see progress from last year, specifically on how we play against a team like Watford. It's especially, I think, the possession stat, 62% to 38%, that's often been us, except flipped around last season. We've often come into games 38% and come away with these smash and grab wins. Yeah. So I think Watford did an awful lot of what we did to teams last season, but we need to be a bit more savvy and a bit more, a bit more grown up with regards to how we work with teams that we're supposed to beat. And that's something I think myself and Paddy spoke about beforehand. One of the big numbers that kind of kicks out at me here, Paddy, and is the amount of crosses. Like, we crossed the ball 26 times. To me, it didn't feel like we crossed the ball 26 times on Saturday. What did you think of it?
It doesn't feel like we had 6 shots on target either. Bearing in mind that John McGinn's goal was the 4th shot on target after 70 minutes. So to get 6 shots on target, I'm actually scratching my head to where they came from. But it's, the facts there speak for themselves. We did boss the game. The second half, we bossed it, apart from their 3rd goal, I suppose. I don't remember there being 26 crosses. Obviously,
Paddy, can I take you out of your misery? I just realised the 6 should be in the Watford side and the 4 should be in the Villa side. So you aren't going stark mad crazy. We still had 4 shots on target, though.
Yeah, well, I don't even remember the 4th one or the 3rd one, for that matter. So, I thought that was ultimately the of all of the statistics, that their 4th shot on target was after 70 minutes against a team that was just promoted. I think that was a pretty poor showing from us. I think it might take a lot more than 24 or 48 hours for them to go over this and work on it. But it'll be.
I don't think so.
It'll be a completely different proposition that they need to work with next weekend. So maybe the team is picked for that. But it was grim watching. It was grim watching the first half, and for a period at the start of the second half, we were grim. When the initial hit of Jacob Ramsey coming on, he was fizzing around the place for about 7 or 8 minutes when he come on. I thought we died a death then for a while, and then gradually grew back into the game after they scored the 3rd goal. But 26 crosses. That's going back to the days against Burnley, the day they beat us. It's I don't. There was nothing from them. The fact that we 4 shots on target, I honestly don't remember any other shot on target other than the 2 that went in.
Let's look at our positioning map. This is why we lost at the weekend. And I'm going to show a couple of explanations. Our setup was all over the place, and especially in midfield. And what we can see here is, and yes, I'm going to make a little caveat here. This looks an awful lot worse due to the fact that Buendia was pulled down in midfield and put in at right. We call it right wing or advanced on the right hand side, and also Ashley Young was pulled back here. So in reality, where we see number 18 here is further up the field, and where we see number 10 here is further to the right. But what I'm looking at here is number 1, the massive gap between our 2 centre halves was absolutely huge, and that's realistically the reason for that is because number 3 Matty Target was so far up the field, and number 2 Matty Cash was that bit further up the field as well. But the biggest problem that we see here is that the amount of grass in between Matty Target and basically Danny Ings here. So it's a bit of an issue. It's a small bit skewed, but we'll be able to see it in real life, in real life example from the match what I'm talking about here, and how basically Matt Target was lambed to the slaughter. There was no, it would have been very difficult for any left back to be able to cope with any winger that had a bit of pace running at them with the amount of grass that they had in front of them. If we look at this, the midfield setup was just so wrong. and it was the positioning of them was so poor. Bar John McGinn, who was basically just herring from sideline to sideline, trying to make something happen, trying to cover for other people's problems. I thought Nakamba's positioning was just absolutely woeful, and you're going to see that in a moment. Look back to the last two wins that we had last season against Spurs and against Chelsea. So here's the positioning map of the Spurs game. We can see a nice little triangle there in the middle of midfield. We can see that Nakamba was further back. We can see less of a gap between our two centre halves, which is nice to see. And in this instance, we had no Matty Cash, but Ezri Konsa was back a small bit further. So we can see we've got that little triangle in front of our back four. You can't pass around that midfield. If you try and go over that midfield, you've got your little stopgap here in Nakamba, number 19, in front of our back four. And that's the way I would like us to play, and that's the way Dean Smith wants us to play for sure. You want that little triangle so that you can have that pivot in midfield. The traditional 6-8-10 is something that Dean Smith liked to play last season, and I think he might have wanted to play that yesterday, but I think Nakamba and Bundia's positioning was just so far out of where it should have been that we weren't able to play that, and our midfield was basically just overrun at will yesterday, or on Saturday, should I say. Looking here as well to our positioning map against Everton, very similar setup. We can see even with Cash and target here, Cash is a small bit further forward. He's not past the halfway line where he spent a lot of time against Watford, because Watford did invite us back on. The gap between our two centre halves is okay. Douglas Luiz, who I think would be absolutely pivotal now coming back, sits right in that perfect pivot place here so that he can receive that ball from the centre halves. He can act as that anchor. He can, like, even just having somebody there to deter straight through balls or to deter those passes into midfield. Somebody like Kuchka at the weekend who was doing awful damage. Luiz would have been able to stop him running at the defence, or would have been able to stop him from picking up the ball there. We can see a nice tight triangle between himself, Barkley and McGinn here against Everton as well. Ollie Watkins further forward, Bertrand Traore and Anwar El Ghazi here. And the reason I picked this as well here is because Jack Grealish isn't on this team. So this is what I would have expected our midfield to look like here.
I think the mitigating factor in this as well, and there's a couple. Number one, Ollie Watkins obviously wasn't there, so you're looking at a whole different set of work rates there between himself and Danny Ings. I think they're completely different. I think he offers more protection, as we're closing down. That Danny Ings probably doesn't, although I saw a bit more of it from him at the weekend. And then the whole Matty Target thing: was he fit? Should he have started? I think he answered the question for us at halftime, because taking a player off at halftime is not Dean Smith's style.
No,
he's never done it before. I certainly don't remember him doing it before. So the only suggestion I can get from that is that he wasn't fit, and if he wasn't fit, he probably shouldn't have played. But that's for another day. I'm sure we'll find out.
So let's take a look at some of the real game examples from what
I know
we
you're
can
talking
see.
about the midfield there. I completely agree.
No,
with you.
but you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, because Matty Target, while he may not have been fit, his teammates didn't do him any favors, and we'll see this in the real game examples in a moment. So here is a still shot. Where we can see our midfield is absolutely crazy high. I talked about that little pivot player, Douglas Luiz, and I can't actually go back on my slide. Oh, I can. So I talked about that little pivot player, Douglas Luiz, who would have played there a lot closer to the centre halves. When we see this here, we just don't have that player here at all. We've got this wide open area here. Our three midfielders are way up high, and look, we can see here that Watford have three people here in a very, very dangerous position, that if the ball breaks down or if Mings goes long, and you just play the ball into this area, we're goners. Like, we're goosed there with our pace. So it's really like our midfield line is way, way too high here. You can see here that this is Nakamba, or this is John McGinn that's here, and John McGinn is probably that bit too far away in this instance here, but it wasn't his job to be that pivot player at the weekend. It was Marvellous Nakamba, and here is Marvellous Nakamba all the way over here. Just out of shot, even further, higher up the field, is Emi Buendia, who's our third midfielder in this instance here. Why do all our three midfielders need to be here in the attacking third of the field? I don't know. specifically when we've only got one out ball here, which is Tyrone Mings. And the whole lot of the Watford team knows exactly what's going to happen here. Does he go long? He most likely does in this instance. So you need this pivot player in here. We can give out about Douglas Luiz all we want. The fact that maybe he wasn't as good last season, or he was a bit off the pace, but having that player in here pushes people into, it keeps him here, keeps these people guessing around here. And also he is an option to take that ball, maybe spray it left or right. Whereas what's happening here is we're just left with Tyrone Mings making the decision. And while a good enough ball playing centre back as he is, you should never really be in that decision, in that position here when you're 5 minutes into a game and you're against the team that's just been promoted, whereby you're resorting to just pinging the ball up 5 minutes into a game. I don't see any reason for this whatsoever, for this setup. Am I mad to think that, Paddy?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's the $6 million question is, how is Richarlison fit to start for Everton when we haven't got Douglas Luiz? We're 2 weeks away from an international break, or what is it? It's 2 weeks, I think. So get him back in there and give him a break in 2 weeks' time.
He'll be back
he's back this weekend. He is back this weekend. He's back in training today. He was there today. But, he played a match last weekend. He was match fit. Perhaps we should have brought him back. Now, maybe. Well, no, it just doesn't add up because there's no protocols there if Richarlison could play at the weekend. I think he was pivotal to our team. I think he should have been back in there, and that would be my main criticism of not playing Douglas Luiz. Nakamba, well, I've great time for him. He had some great games last season. He just wasn't at the races. He just seemed to be off the pace. He just seemed like his concentration levels were gone. He didn't see, his positional sense wasn't there. And he was there because we'd no other option, and that's the long and the short of it. We'd no option off the bench unless you were going to put Tuanzebe in there, and I'm sure that wasn't going to happen. Probably only an emergency at this stage. But look, Douglas Luiz missing was huge on Saturday for me. You got a guy who just won an Olympic gold medal. I'm sure he's absolutely buzzing. I have no idea why he wasn't there.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of people are saying play Carney. Why wouldn't we play Carney if they're old enough? If they're good enough, they're old enough. You can't play Carney in that pivot position. It's just not his position. And if you bring off Nakamba and you've got Carney, McGinn, and Buendia in that midfield, I know you might as well, like, what's to be lost by trying it, but I just don't think it really solves the issue that's there. I think the player that needs to be here is Douglas Luiz or another. We need to find somebody that can go in there. If Nakamba was told to play the way he played on Saturday, I would be absolutely flabbergasted. I would be flummoxed. It would absolutely blow the eyebrows off my face. I'd be so astounded if he was told to be that box to box, all things to everybody midfielder, because it just made no sense looking at him the way that he played. And we'll see it if we go on further here. So once again, we want to look at our midfield line. Here's another one. It's moments after this ball was played. So the ball was played up. We lost possession of the ball from when Mings played it up here. But once again, we see our midfield line is, we're very, very high. We've got Emi Buendia over here on the left-hand side. We've got Marvelous Nakamba, who's now come back into the centre. And we've got John McGinn here. So, we do have a midfield line, but look how high it is. And look at these two boys over here, these two Watford lads over here. We've got Ashley Young out here on his own, which, was probably who the ball was aimed at. We've got these two Watford guys here. And who's behind them? Only Matty Target. Like, this is a recipe for disaster 5 minutes into the game. Our midfield is massively high. And when we look at it here, look at the amount of grass that they have to play in behind. So you've got Young, Buendia, Nakamba, and McGinn. And look at all that grass. And all that's behind that is Matty Target, Tyrone Mings, and Ezri Konsa. Because out of shot here, Matty Cash is very high as well. So it's just ill discipline. Like, somebody needs to be right here. Like, and it's not rocket science. Also,
the other person you're missing that's in that shaded area is the guy who ultimately scores the goal, Dennis.
Dennis, yeah. So you've got Sarah and Tom Cleverly, and then Dennis is, you could just barely see his foot sticking out there.
Yeah, but he plays, he plays a role in the build up to the goal as well as getting the ball out to
Yeah.
Sarr, if I remember correctly.
He does.
And Sarr just destroys us down that side. So it was naive from the midfield. It's definitely naive. It's definitely not the shape that Dean Smith sent them out for. I'm pretty sure of that. Like Nakamba, while his passing has improved and we've seen it in pre-season, his passing was very good. And I'm not taking that away from him, but his passing at the weekend was absolutely abysmal. He was like a guy who was throwing a duck out of water completely. And I don't mean to go in on him because I still think there's a future there for him. But
we're not selling him like.
No, he just needs to wisen up now because we're going to need him more often than he thinks. So this has to be a squad rotation system for us to push on. So he has to be part of it. So he has to get up to speed. I'm at a loss to how bad he was. It's just. There's no, as you say, there's no way he was told to play that high up the pitch. I just can't see any logical explanation for him being there. There's no need for him to even join the attack. Like the correct place for him now is probably in between those two players over on the right hand or their attacking right hand side. So splitting the two of those and going and attacking whatever ball comes or closing down whoever runs with it, whatever the case
Absolutely. Is. And this is only within the first 5 minutes. The goal doesn't come till 10 minutes, but the precursor was there. The precursor for what happened was there, and it was there early. We were throwing people forward, and maybe that was the game plan to say, right, put them under pressure, force them. They're going to be nervous. We'll try and get an early goal. Smith likes to get early goals. No one scored more goals in the first 15 minutes than Aston Villa last season. I think I saw that stat somewhere. But this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work you're going to leave yourself massively open. And when we look even further here, this isn't the build up to the goal. So this is the build up to the first goal as well. Look at all the green area that's there. Like, look at it. To me, this is madness. We've got Marvelous Nakamba in and around the centre circle. I think he should be maybe 10 yards back further here. He should be coming back to almost form a back three with his with his two centre halves. I think if he's going to be defensively minded, considering that if we move on to the next one here, we've got Matt Targett who's under pressure. We've got John McGinn here right beside him. We've got Marvelous Nakamba, who to me is a bit out in the middle of nowhere. Probably we're talking about him coming back maybe about 10 yards from where he is.
He should be on the heels of I presume that's Dennis there in the middle.
Yeah.
He should be on his heel sitting in front of the back too. Mm-hmm. At that stage when we've lost the ball. But it just seemed a bit pedestrian every time we lost the ball. Buendia was guilty of it. McGinn as always is busting a gut to get back there. But I thought Buendia and Nakamba were guilty of not getting back quick enough. And in fairness to Buendia, when they did eventually score the third goal, he did put in the work to get back. So maybe there was a flea in the ear at halftime.
We'll see that in a moment as well, because I've got a still shot of where we actually lose the ball there too. And then the next one here, this is the distance between the midfield and the defense again. So that was on 9 minutes and 40 seconds, the last one I showed you. This is 10 minutes and 21 seconds. So we're talking 41 seconds later. We're in exactly the same situation once more. Exactly the same situation where we've got men herring back, trying their best to get back because we've left way too much space on the left-hand side and we were all filtered over to one side here. Within this one here, you can see Nakamba once again is miles forward. He's the furthest forward. He's way too far forward for a defensive midfielder. Matty Targett is after getting skinned at this stage, and John McGinn is herring back at breakneck pace. Dennis is right in between Mings and Konza, which for me, I think Mings and Konza are actually okay in this position here. Matty Cash has taken up a nice position. He's able to, to marshal anything coming through the middle, which there isn't. The only person who's coming through the middle here is Nakamba, and Nakamba is about 15 yards further back than where he should be. He should almost be here in line with McGinn. And that's a big issue because Nakamba doesn't bust a gut to get back here. And when that second ball falls to Dennis within the box after the first shot, we'll see how far Nakamba was away again. And that's where this one, that's what this still shot is of here. So the ball comes to Dennis and Konza gets the block in here, but Nakamba is still 10 yards away. And the funny thing about it here, and I know this is no good for anybody who's listening to the podcast version of this, you're going to have to subscribe on YouTube and give this a watch if you want to see these still shots. But Nakamba actually runs towards the back post after all this happens. And it's a mindless run. It's as if he kind of just goes, I better run very quickly and just get past the play. And he actually sprints past everyone towards the back post when everything is happening towards the front post. And if he was 10 yards further back where he should have been and it wasn't out of position, I don't think this goal is scored, because I think that Dennis is under massive pressure if that's the case. And I think Nakamba might have been the man to stop it. Goalkeeper should have done better as it was anyway. But it all stems from the fact that Nakamba was way too far up the field. We had no shield in front of our back four. Target loses the ball high as well because there was an absolute acreage of space in behind him and in front of him. And once he loses the ball, we are open, and what we need to do there is we need to filter back and protect our centre, because Sarr was going to cross that ball with John McGinn's good work, and it just didn't happen.
Well, you know, we're calling out Nakamba needlessly. Target dived in as well out on the sideline, so he needs to be called out on that. But because of Nakamba's position there, you know, me being a full back and knowing where the protection should be, ideally, as that ball broke, Ming should have been able to see that Nakamba was coming in to cover there. But he unfortunately was 15, 20 yards off the pace. That meant that Mings couldn't go and block down the shot at the cross like he did for, the second goal. That should have been the ideal position for Mings once we were that exposed. But that didn't happen. I don't know if that didn't happen by accident, or he knew that Nakamba wasn't getting back and he needed to cover his lines.
Yeah. I think McGinn was almost a hero in this instance here. If McGinn stops that cross, no one gives him the credit for the work, the dog's work he did there. And
we'll give him the credit, Neil.
And it's like the work he does there to get back there. And I think McGinn gets a lot of stick because he spends an awful lot of time trying to clean up other people's messes, and it doesn't help him because he always looks like that guy who was the last guy on the scene. You know, so it's I could be wrong on that, but I really think John McGinn is he's the best of the three midfielders that we had out in the field last day, and I think we're going to
need to see a little bit more work out of Bundia as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he's going to play in that position, like we realistically need to see him in that picture 25 yards from goal. I think it's
if he's going to if we're going to play that midfield three, and if they are going to be a flatter midfield three, as they started off being, Buendia didn't play in the 10 position, he didn't play in that attacking midfielder position, he played in a flatter midfield tree at the start, and he lost the ball more often than not in that first half. Let's move on there as well, because I'm conscious that, you know, that we're with these still shots. This is what I'm talking about here. A poor example of our spacing in the midfield. 4-4-3-3 once more. This is at 40 minutes in the game, just leading up to the second goal. Once again, we haven't learned our lessons. Watch what we have here. We've got Kuchka up here near the center circle, all on his own. We've got Buendia, we've got Nakamba, we've got McGinn, we've got El Ghazi out here. So this is the way this looks. Buendia, Nakamba, McGinn, El Ghazi, Ings coming to put pressure on the man with the ball here. Kuchka has literally a free run at our back four here. And this cannot happen. Where is our pivot man? Our pivot man should not be above our other two midfielders. Like, McGinn is, for all intents and purposes, better going forward with the ball. Buendia is solely an attacking midfielder, or attacking-minded midfielder. What in the name of all that's holy is our defensive midfielder doing 8 to 10 yards ahead of those guys there? It just makes no sense. And this is the one still shot that makes me believe there is no way he was told to do that in the game. No way in the world were we told, or was Marvelous Nakamba told, that he needs to be that far up the field at any occasion during this game. Because look, it just leaves a massive diamond in there. All you have is a slow little ball in. You can play a slow little ball through here into Cleverly. Cleverly just spins, and he's the whole field here ahead of him. You've got Cooch go over this side. And if we move it on again here, we can see where we lost the ball. So we actually won the ball back in that instance, which was fine. But we dithered on it, and we got it into this situation here where Buendia gets closed down. But once again, the reason I showed the last still shot is Watford can see that. They know where all the space is, and all they have to do is just basically play to that space. So look at the amount of players that we have here. in this shot, we've got Matty Cash, who's right up here. We've got Young, we've got Ings, we've got El Ghazi, we've got Buendia, all crowded out. Buendia gets crowded out, loses the ball. So we've got 5 players literally in their box. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 players plus their goalkeeper. They have 9 players in this still shot here, 30 yards out from their goal. So we draw a box, 9 players here. They have Ishmael Assar out on the left-hand side, and they have Dennis. We lose the ball here. The first thing they do is they ping it out to Ishmael Assar. And Ishmael Assar has a clear track of land to run at Matt Targett, he's ran ragged in the first half. What I'm saying here is the protection is particularly poor, and nobody was thinking about protecting Matt Targett at any stage. And for me, that was like, yes, they were very fortunate in the way the shot goes in, but, we didn't help ourselves further up the field. It was like as if we got greedy looking to get goals. There is no need for everybody to be here. There was no need for Buendia, who got a hospital pass in fairness, but there was no need for him to try and dribble through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players on the edge of the box. He gets crowded out. He falls down in the middle of the box, and we end up 2-0 down. Very much so. It was just a silly, disjointed attacking play, I think that one was.
Yeah. And as you say, it was a nothing. They've got to clear that ball out of there because they're panicking, and it's 2 against 5.
It's 2 against 5. Yes, yeah.
No, I would imagine Matty Cash is a bit higher up the pitch, judging by that picture, where you would expect him to be. But so it's 2 against 4. We should have enough to crowd them out. And let's face it, that look, there was a lot of luck involved in that goal. And and what we neglected to say about the first one is they got quite lucky too as well with that. The ball ricocheting off Ezri Konsa and straight back into his path. There's a lot of people calling out Emi Martinez for it. I wouldn't. He readjusted his feet, and he was just caught out. He couldn't get down to it. He did his best, but it was a lot of luck, and I think that was overlooked on a lot of the coverage that I saw of Match of the Day and Sky Sports and whatever. It was like it was very similar to Yarmolenko's goal the last match of the season when Jack Grealish got back to make the challenge and it dipped over the goalkeeper. But look, if we don't learn from these lessons, there's something wrong. It's just crazy goals to give away at this level. We've lost our talisman. These guys need to start stepping up. Sorry, I've just noticed. Look at Matty Cash he's up on the right hand side.
He's up right up there. Yeah. He's up there. He's up really high. And look, I know. Look, but when Buendia picks up this ball, look where he is. Maybe Buendia slips the ball out to Matty Cash, and we're talking about it being 1-1 or something here. I can't exactly remember where these players were because they've won the ball back at this stage. Have they all converged on the ball after they've won it? I'm not 100% certain, but hindsight is 20/20 on that based on that still shot. But it's very important to see where this is because they go up the field and they score almost straight away afterwards. This is the third goal. This is what happens for the third goal. Now, this is manic altogether. The third goal was the most fortuitous goal we'll likely see against Aston Villa. It was a calamity of errors. So first of all, Matty Cash tackles Emi Buendia, and the two of them are on the ground here. So what happened was the ball was played over the top. John McGinn takes the ball into possession here. He gets a small bit out muscled. The ball comes back to this area here, just on the edge of the square, where Matty Cash is going to take the ball. I think it's either Matty Cash or Buendia. One of them is going to take the ball, and the other one of them just tackles him. And the two of them end up on the ground. So the ball breaks loose here. We've got Danny Ings. We've got Jacob Ramsey. I'll move it on here. We'll see it here. So we've got McGinn, who's completely out of play, which is because he was doing dog's work to get in there to get the ball in the first place. We've got Ings, we've got Ramsey, we've got Cash and Buendia, where Buendia actually tackled Cash after Cash had won the ball. And we've got Nakamba lurking here on the side here. Watford are going to get the ball back, and Watford play it up towards the centre circle. So when we get into this position here in the centre circle, absolute madness ensues. I think it's worth noting here that Buendia knows he's done something very silly above by tackling Cash, and he busts his gut to get back in. He's the man who actually meets Chucho Hernandez at the edge of the area. And he did burst his gut to get back there, which I did like to see. But when we see what happens here, We've got Buendia here busting along to get back. Nakamba here, Kuchka just in front of Nakamba actually has the ball. Nakamba goes to foul Kuchka and he doesn't succeed. He goes in to try and tackle him and boot him to try and bring him down.
Foul him. If the referee play on. The referee was given the foul. He did actually foul him. Yeah.
The ball then squirts over here towards the guy beside Jacob Ramsey, who Jacob Ramsey then tries to foul him. And then the most fortuitous thing happens is the ball just literally loops out and squirts. No one plays it. It's a tackle from Jacob Ramsey, and the ball ricochets off their man up over Konza and Mings and lands over the opposite side of them to where Hernandez is literally just standing on the touchline, not really wanting to get involved. Gets lucky. It's like his lucky day. He runs in on that ball. He takes it on. Buendia busts a gut to get back there, and Hernandez just pops it in the top corner with an absolutely fantastic finish. But the fortuitous nature of that goal, due to, like, and I know Nakamba went to do Kuchka, but do him if you're going to do him. And I know I seem like I'm going in on Nakamba here, but like I thought he kind of half failed to foul him. Because he knew he wasn't going to win the ball, and it was just so fortuitous that when it comes back here to Ramsey, it ricochets up over, and they get a free run in. Although we did get players back, there was still a fantastic finish. But my God, like 3-0 down in that instance was for me, like there's an element to look to all three of their goals, but my God, do we not help ourselves? And the biggest issue for me, and the reason that I'm so annoyed that I'm talking here, is that every single one of those goals, you could foretell how, well, especially the first two, you could foretell how open Matt Targett was based on how ill-disciplined our midfield was. And that's not on. But the long and the short of it is, Paddy, I think that's why I think it's fixable over the next 24, 48 hours on the training field, because it's very simple. We go back to playing that pivot man, and two of those goals don't happen. I'm very, very confident of that.
I think so. I just some of the positional, like even if you look at that last picture there, that goal should have been avoidable from where we're at. You got Konza and Mings over there on that side, and somehow it ends up with Buendia back there when maybe Konza should have taken responsibility and made an attempt at it. Who knows? Look, it's we're probably overdoing it a little bit on Nakamba, and so be it. It's not something we'd normally do, Neil. But I think you're right. It has to be said, and we've probably let Matt Targett off the hook a little bit. And the reason I'm letting him off the hook a little bit is because I doubt he should have started in the first place.
Yeah, let's not let him off the hook. He was skinned for the 2 goals, and look, he's going to say the exact same thing. And we're not looking to sell any of these players. It's one game out of 38. We're talking that this is why the game happened, And I'm sure that Dean Smith is going to Marvelous Nakamba and to Matt Targett. Listen, I don't dislike you. I'm not going to bomb you out of the squad. I'm not going to have a hate campaign against you for the next 37 games. But I'm going to tell you didn't play very well, and you didn't do your job with great discipline. I think if Nakamba does his job with great discipline, he's in a position to help both fullbacks. That's what your defensive midfielder should be able to do. Should be able to drop into a centre back position, so the centre backs can maybe funnel across. You saw earlier in the very first slide that I showed. I'll bring it up again there. The very first slide I showed here. This is killer. Like, look how open our centre halves had to be, because they had to try and get out to Matty Targett. And even how the big distance between these two centre halves here, Tyrone Mings still couldn't open up that gap any further than he did to get out to Matt Targett. So what I'm talking about here is if Nakamba is more disciplined and able to filter in there and between there to always make it a back three like Douglas Luiz does sometimes, Tyrone Mings is able to get out there a small bit quicker because he's not lacking for pace. But it just didn't happen. And the more disciplined your defensive midfielder is, and the more they're able to kind of read the game as opposed to be an interceptor of the ball, and Douglas Luiz is very good at that, the better our fullbacks will be able to be at going further forward. And we need them to go forward. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't go forward, but if they do, you can't just leave the house open at home. And that's what we did. And it was very kind of easily exploited, just like Brighton did against us last year. When they won against us 2-1, they left Danny Welbeck outside on the wing, just like Leeds United did against us last year. They just left Jack Harrison, and they didn't need to think what they were doing. They could just play the ball out there because they knew that our midfield would have gone forward. And we arrested that towards the end of the season. and we played well against the better teams because we were able to play these triangles being set up correctly so that we can, get out to players when we need to. And this one here without Grealish, where Luis was actually a small bit further deep against Everton when we beat them 2-1 as well. So I think we go back to a midfield setup of something like this, where Luis does comes in, drops a small bit deeper. We'll see there's less of a gap between the two boys here, and then we see things move a small bit more fluidly here. Oh, I need to take my blood pressure after that because I kind of worked myself up in the middle. Marvelous Nakamba, I apologize if you feel I went in too hard on you there. I didn't mean it. It's just a small bit of constructive criticism. I know you're a good player. We sang your praises an awful lot last season. We're going to tell you when, maybe you're out of position. And all I want to know is, and you can write me a letter if you need to, or you can send me a DM. Were you told to play the way that you played on Saturday, as in going so far forward? Because that's what irked me as much as anything else. Paddy, let's draw a line on Watford and let's move on. I just felt I needed to get that out of my system. We'll be doing more of these tactical breakdowns on games as well over the course of the season. I think this is very cathartic for me anyway, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters because, as long as I'm happy.
I think it would be it'd be remiss of us to draw a line under it at this stage. I think we need to give a couple of special mentions. I thought Jacob Ramsey did very well when he came on. I thought he finished the game very well. I thought John McGinn was excellent, as always. We saw a shining light in Leon Bailey coming on.
Yes.
I thought it shows great promise. Danny Ings, I thought, did very well, doing the job that he's used to, not the Ollie Watkins job, as I referred to earlier, and I'm perfectly okay with that. That's why we bought him. I thought Ashley Young did very well. And last but not least, I thought our old mate Bertie did quite well when he came on. Mm-hmm. He just gave us that little bit extra to help open them up. So the one thing I'm left with, if it is a positive from the weekend, is there's plenty there to go and change games.
Yeah.
So we just have to get it right on the pitch, because we can't go and chase a game at 3-0 down, because as we've seen, it's virtually impossible. You look at the Southampton game last year, and they're nearly identical for me. That's all I could visualize when this was happening at the weekend. But the players are there now. We were probably a couple of players short, and I've no doubt that they're trying to get those in, and hopefully that will be done. But I think with what we have at the moment, there's enough there to frighten the best of defenses in this league. It's just we did too much to recover this time, and it hopefully won't be in that. We looking back at this fixture as the one blot on our copybook, because I've no problem losing 1-0 or 2-1, but being 3-0 down is an absolute disaster in this league. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're dead right. The players that you called out there are definite plus points. I said in the Villa View, and I actually do believe it, even though I nearly burst the blood vessel at times there, raising my voice talking about that. I do believe that if that game went on for an extra 5 to 7 to 10 minutes, and I know the games are 90 minutes and there's a reason they're 90 minutes, but if it goes on for an extra 10 minutes, I think we draw up that game, because I think we had Watford figured out at that stage. It just took it, but we brought on two players of immense skill and unpredictability in Leon Bailey and Bertrand Traore, and both of them got the assist for the goals, if you want to count Bertrand being fouled as an assist as well. And I think Bertrand Traore had him in knots on that wing. Had the left back, I think, was a Cathcart on that wing. I think he had him in knots.
Messina was the guy who took him down.
Messina, sorry. So that's why I think it's fixable, Paddy. As I say, I think it's fixable. You fix those midfield three, I think everything else will work okay around it. But it's pivotal, and I do think we need another midfielder for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we'll probably, well, regardless of whether we see one coming in this week, it'll be Douglas Luiz next weekend. We'll probably see a more defensive mind, bearing in mind what Newcastle did yesterday, but we will get to that later in the week. We have a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely. I'm just going to get rid of this for a moment. I want to share up a couple of comments there, guys, because got into the zone with things there. So apologies about that. John Steele pops up. Buendia may not have been fit, but he shouldn't have been playing in the middle. Put him on the right and put Chukwuemeka in the middle against Newcastle. I don't think we see Chukwuemeka start against Newcastle. I think we see McGinn higher up. I think we see. Yeah, actually, I think we probably do, and I think we see Buendia start on the right hand side with Bertie being the impact sub coming on. But I certainly don't think we see I don't think we see El Ghazi, and I think we see Ashley Young at left back. Liam Bailey in for El Ghazi and Ashley Young at left back, and I think maybe take Mac Target out of the firing line, let him get fit if it is a case where and everybody seems to be saying he wasn't fit, and that could very well be the case. If he wasn't fit, take him out of the firing line and let Ashley Young in there, and I think that's definitely something that we could see. Another person there saying that Target shouldn't play, clearly not fit. Young should play at left back. I think maybe that might be what the situation was.
Yep.
Darrell says McGinn is not a defensive midfielder. Second half, Dino pushed McGinn forward in midfield and scored a goal. Second season in a row, McGinn being played out of position. Time to take the shackles off. I agree. I think McGinn is. I said it there a moment ago. I think McGinn spends a lot of time trying to save the day and trying to be a hero. And I don't want to take that out of his game, but I'd love if he did it a small bit further forward. For sure, absolutely for sure. JF says, didn't realize our XG was so much higher than theirs. Yeah, I think it stems from the fact that their 3 goals were all from, bar the first one, and that came from there were so many people back. Their second goal was a deflected shot, which would from a crazy angle, which would mean their XG is low on that one, and the one from Chucho Hernandez was a worldie. I'd say probably one in 80 or 90 of those ones going, so it's a case of how difficult the shot was, how difficult scoring opportunity was from the position it was played in the field, how many players were back there and stuff like that. So XG is not a good marker of how well a team played at all. It's a marker of how many good goals, I suppose, were really scored, how many chances were created as opposed to how many worldies were scored in the game. But it's still it's a very relative statistic. If you are looking to see how many statistics were or how many chances were created, it's probably better if you look at XG from the point of view of player on player. So if a player has a better XG, has a better goal rate than their XG, that's probably good. But from a team point of view, it's very difficult to translate it from what actually happens from a team point of view into actual reality. I think an awful lot with XG.
Somebody called me out there on the 4 shots on target. He seems to think the shot that nearly knocked out Danny Ings was on target, but didn't see a good.
I don't miss that one. I don't miss that one. Yeah. Can Ings play in that triangle? It would be more of a 4-4-2 with him, wouldn't it? Which it wouldn't be like. I think you're probably talking about the triangle where we have Barkley at the top or McGinn at the top. I think Ings or Watkins, if both of them are to play in the same team, will have to play in that. I do not see a 4-4-2 at any stage this season.
Yeah, I think he plays that Barkley role if we choose to play that. But I think it would probably need to be a 4-2-3-1 with Ings just sitting in behind. That makes sense. 4-2-3-1. Yeah, with like we played for a lot of last season, but with Ings basically playing up very close to when we have the ball, playing very close to Watkins, and we lose the ball.
I could see it more of, and I'm going to be pedantic as opposed to 4-4-2. I could see more of a 4-4-1-1 or 4-2-3-1 situation, as you say there. But I don't think we play an outright 4-4-2 with 2 men right up top. I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. But there's nothing in history or nothing to date has led me to believe that Dean Smith ever wants to play a 4-4-2. And I don't know. As I say, I'm not against it. I just don't think we see it. Rob Henry says, should Ramsey have started in the Dougie position? Hindsight is 2020, I suppose. And that one, when he came into midfield, like he was on for 6 minutes, he was our best player. He had a shot, he had a cross that nearly went in. He got around the field. First couple of minutes he was on. He injected a small bit of pace and impetus into that midfield. But should he have started in the Dougie position? Maybe so. I'm not quite sure he's a 6-sider himself, but I liked what I saw from him when he came on.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a suitable position for Jacob. I think where we play him is probably where he should be.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting one as well. Don't call this a one-off. We're honest. We've seen this type of performance many times under Smith. It's not familiar. I think it's unfair to say we've seen this performance under Smith. I think we've seen this performance before from Aston Villa. We called it out. We said it against Brighton last season and against Leeds. We've seen this, but it's not. It's not many times. I don't think we've seen, and even against Southampton, I don't think it was even like this against Southampton. I just think their formation completely bamboozled us, like it did to a lot of teams last season until teams got them under control towards the end of the season. But I think it's unfair to say we've seen it many times, but we have seen it before for sure. And I do agree with you on that one. And it's not a one-off because, as I say, Leeds and Brighton did it to us last year as well. So yeah, I agree with you on that. And I agree with you on 90% of what you said there, which is good. That's a nice compromise. This is an interesting one. Defense sat too deep. Welsh Woody says defense sat too deep. I'd like to actually look back and see if that's the case. I think probably our centre halves sat too deep. Maybe, yeah, I would agree. But that's an interesting point. Maybe this doesn't come about if we play a higher line. But maybe they didn't want to play a higher line with Ismail Assar, and they were. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm not too sure, but really interesting point. I can't answer that one for certain because I wasn't really looking out for it. I think, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see it.
Yeah, I didn't see anything with the two centre halves to suggest that was the case. Our fullback certainly didn't sit too deep for me. There was. I guess he's probably alluding to the fact that there was such a gap between our midfielders and our defenders. I don't know, but we certainly weren't pushing them well into the other half, as we saw on the main one there. I think when Paddy I went down, the two boys were well back. So, yeah.
Paddy, what do you think? We pack the bags, say goodbye to the families, and just go over and do what Aston Villa need us to do?
Which one are you, Neil?
I'll be Richard O'Kelly. I've got the grey beard. You can be John Terry. You're the marauding the marauding defender. I'll be Richard O'Kelly.
Only he's about a foot taller than me.
Yeah, well, that's okay too. John Terry's a foot taller than me too as well. So I just think I'd do a better Richard O'Kelly.
You just be nice to everybody, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's it. This is a good point as well from Thomas. Yeah, and I think that's what we missed. Post-lockdown, Dougie really was patrolling the D, played the pivot perfectly, and we just didn't have that yesterday. We were too open in the middle. And then Neil Edwards comes in this one. Taggart couldn't deal with his pace. Absolutely. Couldn't deal with Sarr's pace. I think it would have been we would have made it easier for ourselves if we had that midfielder, that side-to-side midfielder, almost like a George Boateng, if we can go back that far, that kind of crab player who just moved from side to side and just kept that ball moving. We didn't like it at the time. Some fans didn't like it at the time when we had Boateng there, but I would have killed for a Boateng there today, against Watford yesterday. Somebody who could just get back and forth across the field, sideline to sideline, help out the fullbacks. It's very important to have that midfielder who can do that, who can close in to try and stop so that a fullback can actually use the sideline as almost an extra defender. You hear about it in rugby an awful lot, but it happens in soccer. You show them down the line, and at least that way, then he goes down for a cross. You can't allow him come inside, and even Taggart was damned if he did, damned if he didn't there, and he had no way to show him. So once he was turned, his body position was completely, it was completely wrong, and he couldn't get back to get to him. Not that he was going to get to him anyway because of the pace that Sarr has. I'm after losing where we were there. Just coming down through these. Interesting. Traore out now for 4 weeks after an injury against Liverpool. There was Liverpool friendly yesterday. Did you hear about that, Paddy? I didn't hear about any Liverpool behind closed doors friendly.
A couple of people said it today, all right, but I hadn't heard anything about it. And there was no official word on Traore either. Very strange that they played Liverpool yesterday.
A day after playing Watford.
It must have played an awful lot of young people in that game, or getting players up to speed. I don't know. Honestly, can't see how someone would take that risks at this time of year. I think it's too late for that. Look, what do we know?
What do we know is right. Yeah, we don't know any details. Like I wouldn't like to start castigating any. Like they're sports scientists there who are going to be able to tell us the situation with people, depending on what the injury was, if it's a knock, if whatever it is. But
Yeah,
these guys
I
are
think
tested
I
an
think
inch of their lives.
if we've got important players picking up injuries in games like that, there's probably a lot of questions that need to be answered. That's just my opinion on it.
Interesting one. Interesting. Stephen Bride says here, do we think we see Axel in the midfield against Newcastle, shield the centre backs? I don't, but I don't discount the fact that we might see Axel in a back three at some stage.
Yeah,
this
I'd
season.
actually like to see him in a back three at some stage. And you
Yeah.
know what? If we're ever going to play a back three, maybe it is against Newcastle to play a back five. So gives our fullbacks the license to roll on. So I think that's the only way we'd see Axel in this team this weekend.
John Steele says, I can't quite see, like, he's alluding to a player, but I can't quite figure out which player John Steele wants us to buy. But he says we badly need a Sander Berger type player. Maybe Sander Berger. Actually, Sander Berger. I can't quite tell if you're trying to tell us to buy Sander Berger there, John. But a big strapping lad he is. Slow as a wet week over the ground, but a big strapping lad. And I think hampered by injuries last season. And I think he's better than what he showed against Sheffield United. Whether he's the type of player Aston Villa need, I'm not sure. I think he goes to a team if he goes to a team in Italy, he absolutely eats it up out there and becomes a star. But in the Premier League, I'd like to see a small bit more of him. But I know as sure as anything, he's not going to play championship football for too long. I don't think he will get moved on. That's kind of it, Paddy. I'm not too sure that there's actually Owen says here that the 4-1 loss to Liverpool in a friendly was in an article about Henderson signing a new deal.
Really,
it's an interesting one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the story is there. If there's any injury report on him, we'll see.
To me, it's probably one we could have done without. I just don't get the psychology behind that one. We've got a game the weekend. We've got the midweek game next week. So there's a lot to consider to throw in another game like that to get game time for people. I don't know.
And Liverpool would have played the late game. Liverpool played the late game, didn't they, on Saturday?
Yeah, so they would have been playing a mixture of youngsters, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll have to give us more information on it now if we picked up injuries. So
we'll have to see. We'll have to see for sure. Paddy, how did our loan crew do? I've kind of grown bored of talking about our first team after that.
Well, not as good as last week. Our roving reporter Ben reckons that Akos Sonodi had a bit of a stinker at the weekend. He let in 4 goals for Sporting Bromsgrove, and they were beaten 4-0. Louis Barry played 66 minutes before being taken off in Ipswich 2-1 win against Burton. Kane Kessler played 90 minutes, a full 90 minutes. Unfortunately, in the 90th minute, he got sent off in Swindon's 2-1 loss to Carlisle, who incidentally, Carlisle signed Brad Young today on loan. Good luck to him. I hope he gets plenty of game time. Indiana Vasilev, rewarded for his goal last week, started the game against New York City FC. They lost 2-0 and he lasted 64 minutes. Seb Revan played a preseason game for Grimsby. Very hard to get information on it. Seems like he played the full game. And the one I couldn't find last week, Finn Azaz played 90 minutes for Newport against Mansfield and they were beaten 2-1.
How did Louis Barry get on? Did I tune out for Louis Barry?
Louis Barry played 66 minutes before being subbed off in the 2-1 loss to Burton.
I'm not too worried about, I think, because look, a lot of people are looking at Louis Barry. I'm not too worried if he's not scoring goals. It's about getting used to running lines against men. And look, football. Big boys football, yeah. Look, he's under a good guy there in Paul Cook. Paul Cook managed here in the League of Ireland as well, and he did great stuff there. He's honing his talent at the lower leagues there as well. You know, he wouldn't have left Wigan only for the fact that Wigan were in financial turmoil, I think. And he's rocked up at Ipswich. If I'm not mistaken, did he take over from Paul Lambert, or was there somebody in between? So, yeah. There may have been somebody in between. So he's a good coach. I think he's going to coach him up the right way, and I think that look, I'm not expecting him to get 10 goals for Ipswich this season, but if he does, fair play to him. And remember, he's only 18 years of age, Louis Barry as well. He's going to learn how to run lines against defenders and people who aren't backing their pace. People are going to body check him. He doesn't get that at youth football. Doesn't get, that kind of nous and experience at youth football. So, if he scores 6 goals and comes back, if he scores 5 goals and comes back, it's all about the experience of learning.
In other news, we signed Kenny Chukwuemeka's brother today, Caleb, from Northampton, for an undisclosed fee, 20 years of age, I believe. The older brother of Carney, so good luck to him. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in and where he's going to play. So good luck to him, and we wish him a great future along with his brother. Good luck getting to see Chukwuemeka on your jersey, because it's going to be it can't even be CA, because they're both CA.
No, it's Hardy and Caleb. That's what it's going to be.
That will make life a whole lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I already see that the chants are out there for the Colo and the Yaya Toure chant has been rewritten to the Carney and the Caleb chant now. So hopefully we get to see that. I think we'll see Caleb Chukwuemeka to probably, he's probably going to come in, probably take Brad Young's position there at the top of the strike force in the Premier League 2 and see what happens. He only got a couple of goals for Northampton, but he was in and out of the team. And there seems to be a small bit of acrimony between how he left Northampton. There seems to be a feeling that his head was turned and that his dad seems to think that he's much better than he is. But look, that's a scorned lover talking about how Caleb Chukwuemeka is. I'm looking forward to seeing him in a Villa shirt. He's 19 years of age. We have him for a couple of years, and we'll see if he can progress through our youth setup. I think it's he's one of the guys who has the big boy football experience already. Let's see if he can bang him in now Premier League 2 level and just get used to kind of honing his finishing at that level as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, don't do it to me, Holtender. Do not do it to me. I heard Louis Barry is very open to playing for Republic of Ireland, but I had no contact from the Don't do that to us.
Louis Barry did play for the Republic of Ireland when he was younger,
and
chose to go and play for England. So yeah, I'd imagine that's why there's no contact from the FAI, not because they chose not to. Maybe they've given up the ghost, or they were told to give up the ghost. I think that ship has sailed. When they play at an older age level for England, I think the ship has sailed. But you're right, there is a lot of Irish connections in his family.
Yeah. Just before I go there, guys, I have, and I think we're on over an hour, Paddy, so apologies if I'm wrapping this up. The Great Villa Sleep Out is coming up. I think it's on the 8th of October, and a couple of fantastic guys are going to be doing the sleep out. Kieran O'Callaghan is going to be doing it, guys, and I'm going to tweet out in a moment later on. If anybody wants to sponsor somebody, there's loads of people who are doing it who are worthy of sponsorship, but very few of them as worthy as Kieran O'Callaghan. He's a deadly guy, great friend of the show here. He's B6 Ben's dad, in case you don't know who he is, but very big in Villa Twitter and also for raising for great causes. So if you have anything spare and you're looking to sponsor somebody, give Kieran a shout. You'll see you'll see it. I'll tweet it out there in a while. Paddy, I think that does us for tonight. It's 10 o'clock. We let people go to bed.
Well, they have their installment of Monday Night Football. I know there was no live games on Monday night, which is a bit strange for the Premier League being back. So hope you all enjoyed the last hour. I actually enjoyed looking at how you broke it down, Neil, and fair play.
And guys, if you like that or whatever, will you just retweet the original post or whatever, see if people want to see it. I'd like to know if people think it's a lot of tosh, then we won't put it together. If people like it, we'd like to do this, because I really enjoy this stuff anyway. Trying to look back to it. And I must say, Villa TV is an absolute treasure trove this season, and I'm really loving what they've done. And the club have really, really gotten this one right. It's an A+++ for me on what they've done this season. So if you like it, go find the original post where I popped this up, give it a like, give it a retweet, and get it out there, and we'll see if people actually like us doing this. And if they do, well, hey, we'll continue to do it, because I had a ball putting it together. Rightio. On that, bombshell, or not a bombshell, on that ask for help, I think we're going to leave it there, guys. Thanks so much, as I said, to everybody for listening and for watching. And thanks very much, Paddy, for Paddy is away at the moment with work, and I thank you very much for popping on when I'm sure you've got other things that you could be doing since you're away. You're away at the moment.
Apologies for the background, because I'm sure people don't want to see the bed, but unfortunately it's the only place that could get Wi-Fi in this apartment, so I'm sorry for that, but you have to look at the bed in the background.
You're absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with it anyway, Paddy. As long as you're not doing the podcast from bed, we'll be okay.
I've actually got 3 or 4 messages there on WhatsApp from people that are watching, asking me what's wrong with my eye. So the eagle eyes out there, seeing that one eye is
I didn't even spot it.
I think I got some hand sanitizer into it somehow or another, but that seems to be the general consensus of what happened when I went for medical attention today. So
the clue is in the name, Paddy. It's hand sanitizer.
Oh, I know.
just in case you weren't sure.
Yeah. I certainly didn't rub it into my eye. How it got there now is another story.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks a million for everybody for listening. Please like and subscribe and share the podcast all around the place if you can. We'd really appreciate it. It costs you nothing and it really, really helps us out. We're going to be back on probably Thursday night, I would say, with a preview of the game against Newcastle. And we're going to try and make it a regular Thursday night preview, Monday night review show, and do this on a Monday night with a post-match immediate reaction afterwards for maybe 10-15 minutes. I might do that one solo, or we might get some guests on for that. We'll see what the situation is, but listen, we'll be coming with loads of content and we hope you all enjoy it. Thank you so much for everything you do for the podcast. Really, really appreciate it. Going to leave it at that, and all that's really left to say, guys, is thanks so much, and up the Villa.
Up the Villa.